107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Three FM's sources indicate that organised labour is to convene meeting over dismissal of the Director General of SNIT, Dr. Fosu Kranting. Also, Ministry of Transport set to meet Transport Union executives later this afternoon to deliberate on calls for an upward review of transport fares. And much later on this program, government launches performance tracker 8 months to the end of the Akufo-Addo administration. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, 3FM sources indicate that organised labour is to convene a meeting over the dismissal of the Director General of SNIT, Dr. Fosu Kranting. President Akufo-Addo, in a letter dated April 8, relieved the former SNIT boss of his position as Director General with effect from Monday, April 15, directing one of his deputies, Bosumpim Osafo-Mafo, son of senior advisor Yaw Osafo-Mafo, as the new Director General. The development has already sparked conversations in some quarters, questioning the reason behind the decision, considering the fact that Dr. Kranting had a few months to go on retirement. Founder and president of Imani Center for Policy and Education, Franklin Kujo, for instance, already took to his Facebook page to describe the termination of the appointment without a reason as disturbing. I've been joined in the studio now by our Labour Affairs correspondent Daniel Opoku to assess the former Director General and what the new boss is expected to deal with. Daniel, I'm coming to you shortly, but I want to lay some issues bare before we start our conversation. The first is that there are issues about SNIT indebtedness from Auditor General's report. We also do know that SNIT investment and some associated challenges as well have been made public. Past credit to registered schemes of organised labour, unification of pensions, difficulties in roping in the informal sector onto the SNIT scheme. And of course, there's also the bit about the NPRA as a regulator. In the midst of all these issues, tell us what you know and what you think could be informing this very decision.
Right. So, Beatrice, this is an issue, or these are issues we have been lingering on for quite some time now, before the coming of the former Director General of SNIT. And when the Director General took over, I would have expected that some of these concerns would have been addressed, but it has been very difficult for him. For instance, I want to look at the issue about the Auditor General's report. When you look at the 2022 Auditor General's report, fund managers owe SNIT in excess of 483 million Ghana cedis, where SNIT has not been able to collect. And also, government owes SNIT, as of last year May, 2.63 million Ghana cedis. All these things are in arrears, where SNIT, former SNIT was unable to do those collections. The issue about pension unification, what are we talking about? Pension unification was spearheaded under the Pensions Act 766, saying that Section 213 says that every public sector employee or every public sector institution should come under the Pensions Act 766. But unfortunately, there are some institutions which are not under pensions need. For instance, those in the security agencies, the judiciary, all of them are not on the SNIT pension scheme. So the unification of pension basically is bringing all public sector institutions on that. So when you retire, you'll be able to get your benefits. Currently, what the situation is that when you're a policeman, a military man, or within a security agency, when you retire on your salary. So when the person receives, let's say, 20,000 Ghana cedis before retirement, the person will continue to receive 20,000 Ghana cedis after retirement. And that has been a major problem for Labour, saying that there must be pension unification. The process was started. Along the way, it was truncated because there were some agitations on the front of the security and the judiciary. They resisted that. And another one has to do with allowances. Currently, it is just the basic pay that is deducted. Allowances are not part. So the former DG, Dr. Oforitimkra, wanted to design a particular program where allowances could be included in the calculation of pension. But unfortunately, he could not do that. There were some few things that he was able to do. One, Major one has to do with what we call indexation of Senate or indexation of a monthly payment. Now, when you retire, every year government increases the monthly stipend for pensioners. Last 2020 it was just around 10%. This year 15%. So every year we see an increment. Also, that's also a requirement of law which the former DG was able to do. So basically, it's not done bad, even though there were some agitations during his tenure in terms of the transfer of past credit. When they transferred most of the public sector employees under the Pensions Act 766, there was a 1% amount of about 600,000 public sector workers whose monies was to have gone to the various registers. But unfortunately, that was also not done because the argument then was that obviously Senate was going to collapse. So that has been the back and forth discussion before it's been asked to go home.
Now, if I see the communication coming from the labor unions, it seems that they are meeting because of the decision to relieve this man of his post. Are they against it?
Now, when judging from what the labor union said, asking somebody to leave a position, the prerogative of the president. But on the Senate board, you have 3 labor unions. And Senate holds the money in trust of workers. So organized labor is of the view that yes, the president has the sole mandate to decide who he appoints or who he dismisses. But obviously, they believe there should be some kind of discussions or communication to them.
They think it was too arbitrary.
Exactly. And now currently, I'm also going to assess the new boss who has just been appointed into office. These are the two. Let's not forget that the new boss now was a deputy director general to Dr. Oforitin. So obviously, he's also privy to some of these difficulties.
So you tell us a little bit about the new boss, but his appointment is already generating a whole conversation on social media. Also because he's connected to the senior advisor. What's really the link? What are you picking up beyond what people are saying?
Right. So from the front of Labour, once he was a former deputy director general of Senate, obviously he also qualified to be the director because just one step ahead of him. Now, him being linked to his father, Mr. Osafo Mafo, the argument has also been going on for some years now. And let's not forget the current one, that's Mr. Bosompem, who is now the director general, who served as Senate for 6 to 7 years. So he knows the intricacies within Senate. And him coming on board, I don't think there's anything wrong. Now we are looking at qualification and also looking at his experience and his skill set that is bringing on board. If he's able to address some of these concerns, then the issue about whether he is appointee of his father and all that, for me, it doesn't come in here. But in the case of from the Labour front, they are purely looking at the qualification, his expertise, whether he'll be able to execute exactly what they want. Just few months to election for the end of this year. They're expecting him to do these things, unify the pensions, also be able to transfer the past credit to the register scheme. Further, if he's able to do that, then they are good to go.
Daniel, in like 30 seconds, this meeting that the labor unions are having, as we've learned, what are they expected to talk about, really?
Now, they're basically going to put down their concerns on paper and petition the presidency that the current state of Senate, in terms of its indebtedness, government owes Senate, and other myriad of challenges I have itemized previously, that's what they are going to petition the president to also look at, and also try to have a stable environment where the changing of director generals and all that clearly affects pension contributions.
Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku. He is our Labour Affairs correspondent. Thank you for bringing us these details. Now, the Ministry of Transport is set to meet Transport Union executives later this afternoon to deliberate on calls for an upward review of transport fares. The proposed increase in fares follows an increase in fuel prices, which went up twice last week. Aside from fuel prices, transport operators have also been complaining about the high cost of spare parts, lubricant, etc. George Quaining is monitoring the situation for us. He joins us live. George, what can you tell us?
Beatrice, good afternoon and thanks for having me. And so the meeting is actually scheduled for 2 p.m. As leadership of the Ghana Private Road Transport Union that's going to have that meeting. And so by a potential increment in transport fares. Even prior to this, when I engaged some drivers, what they made me aware is that they're expecting an increment of not less than 15%. Even though, they wanted more of that, they understand it's a tough time. So, if the increment is mutual for passengers and drivers, they'll be cool, because sometimes it brings about altercations, passengers and drivers. Increments have always been a challenge, but it should be one that would really be mutual for both passengers and drivers. And like you rightly mentioned, what has necessitated this very increment is the fact that over the years there's been increments in the prices of spare parts, lubricants, DVLA documentation and permits, and insurance premiums, and just the recently increment in the fuel price. So this is what has necessitated the increment. And after 2 p.m., after the meeting, the PRO, that's Abbas Ibrahim Moro, has confirmed to speak to me exclusively, and they can't really tell what percentage they're going to arrive at. But after the meeting, he updates me.
So what it means is that irrespective of the percentage, the unions are bent on implementing an upward adjustment of transport fares, maybe today or tomorrow.
No, so even 2 days before this very meeting, I went to some stations and it was revealed that some drivers have actually increased their prices unapproved fares. And these are floating drivers who are not associated with any union or any station. So these are illegal prices. But if you are part of GPRT, you have no right to increase your fares until leadership comes up with a new price, Beatrice.
All right, thank you very much. And that was George Quaining there, bringing us a situational report on whether or not there's going to be some increase in transport fares and the percentage. And indeed, the Transport Ministry is meeting transport unions later today to finalize that very decision. Now, this afternoon, again, the government is launching a performance tracker at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA, in Accra. The platform aims to encourage accountability and openness in the implementation of infrastructure of over 13,000 projects across the country. The tracker is also to help address concerns regarding the dependability and accuracy of project presentations, particularly when it comes to the use of artist impressions to show outcomes. Here's the Minister for Works and Housing, Kojo Ponkoma, with a brief overview of the tracker.
The performance tracker is an empowerment tool. It empowers all of us, all of society, so that together we can track our common progress. The general public is asking questions. Those questions are answered on this platform. Development partners want to know, when we give you, budget assistance or specific project financing, what do you use it for? The answers are here. The media is asking questions on a regular basis. The fourth estate of the realm, holding government accountable. What has government done with the resources of the states? The answers are here. Civil society organizations, sometimes across various sectors, are asking questions. The answers are here. And here, on an academic premises like this, you also do know that the academia is always asking questions. The answers are here. The performance tracker has an architecture of about 5 key parts. The information is organized in 5 key, buckets. First, you'll find thematic areas. As I mentioned, in 2020, the tracker focused mostly on infrastructure projects. We've gone beyond that. And so in 2024, this tracker features 22 thematic areas. So you'll find, for example, roads, where you'll find a lot of infrastructure. You find education, you will find health, you'll find security.
Works and Housing Minister Kojo Ponkoma there. Duke Mesopoku is also there for us. He joins us live on the line. Duke, what more can you tell us as regards what's happening?
Well, so apart from what the minister has said, and he was the government representative who launched the platform, he also indicated that apart from the fact that this is a digital platform which can be accessed by a URL, that is a website, there's also a version that is an app, a mobile app device that you can have on your phone and download it from one of he said the Apple Store version is ready. And they're also looking at developing the Android version as well. So it's not unlike what happened in 2016, the delivery tracker is not only available via a website or a URL, it also has a feature for an app, a mobile app that you can access that on. Apart from that, this tracker also has a GPS location associated with it. So if you want to, for instance, verify what the project is or what has been done in relation to that, you just have to pick the GPS coordinates and put it into any phone that is GPS compliant, and it will take you exactly to the place where the project is. Also, apart from that, they also did indicate that the data set is up to June 2023, and that they will be updating it as and when more data becomes available. They think that this is a very, very important tool in ensuring that government is accountable to the people, what they use their taxes for, what they use their resources for. And it will also be a tool for them to be able to propagate the good work that they've done over the period.
Thank you very much, Duke Mensa Opoku. He is on our political desk. Thank you for bringing us those details. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM. When we come back, we'll bring you the story of why there seems to be mixed reactions to the decision of the National Executive Council of the NPP to confirm Farouk as the candidate for the December 7 polls. Don't go away.
Freezer, get the Abba. Adama for the Abba, a freezer. Adama. What's the mention? Adama, Metamosua, my sorry. Canino, over Moasia. I do for the Nobium Unum and San last night. I tell what we did up here. Adama for you from what we say. Yet you drew back up a ship we be a high technology. I could for freezer. When Kwan and once open your 15 letters. No fugum, what ya no fugum. What the bus here? For you be any what you do, equity self, over Timono. Then we sure say, mention Tassia. Then what's enough for now? Freezer, power up a day. Freezer, Tassia, a person does so among Ammoniaji. To me, me what's he got? To the me, but you may not do some doom. Adama, with that Adama, no, Adama, you can't resist.
Ubenya Adama West Africa for a dream, or baby bear a tongue cry who made you. I feel Kayona Kinkai in Choya, a dream.
3FM 92.7.
So here on the Midday News on 3FM, let's bring you some politics, and there are mixed reactions to the decision of the National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party to confirm Farouk as the candidate for the December 7 polls. The main contender, Farouk Aliu Mahama, Hajia Abiba Mahama Zakaria, say that's the one who didn't win. She's disappointed in the decision of the National Executive Council of the NPP to confirm Farouk as the candidate for the December 7 poll. She described the decision as surprising and not thoroughly considered, but nonetheless, he has chosen to accept it in the interest of the party and the government. Let's listen to the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Haruna Mohammed.
We are not going to end there. Yendi is our cash cow, and we know this decision might not be sitting with all the people in Yendi. So at this material point in time, the party will continue to engage all stakeholders in this particular matter so that all of us will understand that party first before any other matter. That is it.
And you heard the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, and that was Haruna Mohammed there. Let's cross over to correspondent Christopher Amoakon to get an understanding of this reaction from supporters in Yendi. Christopher, we know that Hajia Abibata Zakaria says she disagrees with the decision of NEC but accepts it. But what's the constituency? The constituents, what are they saying?
Yes, so the constituents, especially her sympathizers, are equally saying the same thing because though they have expressed their dissatisfaction and disappointment in the decision of NEC, but they are saying that they are all MPP, and for that matter, they will have to abide by the decision of the NEC, and that they also want NEC to understand that Hajia Abibata Mahama has not been fairly treated, and that undermines the democracy that the MPP is touting itself for.
So, Amako, what you're telling me is that the constituents of Yendi are unhappy about this decision. How is it looking like for December 7? Is it going to have that negative impact? Because if the people who are voting are not happy, I'm wondering what the consequences could be.
Yes, so for now, the majority of the people in Yendi, especially those who are sympathizers of the ruling New Patriotic Party, are saying that a finality has been brought to the issues surrounding the January 27 parliamentary primaries, and it's about time they unite themselves ahead of the battle on the December 7th. And so even though the sympathizers of Hajia Abibata Sani Mahama are saying that they are disappointed in the decision, but they are ready to work for the party. And for the candidate. So it is supposed to mean that if all hands are on deck, remember Yendi is a cash cow for the ruling New Patriotic Party in the northern region. And so if these stakeholders are able to bring the party front together and ensure that there is unity, then it means that the MPP will not have any problem winning the seat again. But if they are only saying it by word of mouth, but their actions will show otherwise, then it means that it will be serious for the MPP on December 7th.
Thank you very much, Christopher Marco. He's a man in the northern region bringing us reactions after the NPP's NEC decided on Farouk Aliyu Mahama as the candidate for the December 7 parliamentary election. We head to the Ashanti region because another election is boiling up there, slated for the 30th of April. Ejuso, following the passing of a Deputy Finance Minister and the MP for the area, Dr. John Kuma, and William Evans Inkum is in the studio with us. He is here with all the details. You've been doing the background checks, William, but before you even tell us what's going to happen on the 30th of April, give us a sense of what has been the history for the NPP in terms of the parliamentary primaries, really.
Well, so Beatrice, for the purpose of this discussion, we want to look at head-to-head between the NPP and the NDC as far as parliamentary election in Ejuso is concerned, beginning from 1996. So Kwesi Osei-Ajayi, the former Foreign Affairs Minister under Elsewise Kufuor administration, was the first member of parliament on the ticket of the NPP, and he had 34,521 votes, representing 63.20%. His opponent from the NDC was Mohamed Bouachi Ajamai, 10,103 votes, representing 18.50%. We've had the likes of Enima Wilson, the former Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister, unfortunately who's late now. She is the only NDC candidate to have gone 2 consecutive terms to contest on the ticket of the opposition National Democratic Congress. So we are talking about 2004 and then 2008. I mean, first one was against Kwesi Osei-Ajayi. The second one was against Kwabena Owusu-Aduomi. Kwabena Owusu-Aduomi was the Deputy Minister for Roads and Highways. Currently, he's serving as a special purpose vehicle for the current administration, giving some level of technical advice as far as road construction in the Ashanti region is concerned. And even in the Ejuso constituency, he's doing some work there. And I must say that it's also inuring to his political benefit because he's getting some level of close contact with the people. But guess what? He's likely to contest an independent candidate.
Yes, we heard that information this morning. How will that play out, really? Is he that popular as the other one who became independent and is now occupying an important position in Parliament?
Let me also establish that this would have been the first time Ejuso will have an independent candidate. That is, if Aduomi decides that finally is going to contest an independent candidate. As of this morning, I had received some confirmation that he will be contesting as an independent candidate. Don't mind you. I mean, don't forget that he has served as a member of parliament on the ticket of the NPP for 3 consecutive terms. We are talking about 2008, 2012 and 2016.
So
of course,
he's got
2020.
That clout.
Absolutely. And his winning margins were very, impressive. Since the days of Kwesi Osei-Ajayi. Of course, John Kuma gave an MPP some level of a margin as far as their parliamentary results in that particular constituency is concerned. But if you're talking about his influence in that constituency, then you cannot underrate it.
So we'll see how that pans out within the NPP come the 30th of April. But again, I'm curious to find out why the NDC is bowing out of this whole election.
Jareen Asante is not somebody who is very known as far as the political circles of the NDC and even in the Ejuso constituency is concerned. Yes, she served as an executive member at the branch level, a business woman. This would have been the first time she finds herself in that kind of huge political space, having to contest for a national election. Looking at the figures, the NDC has never even grossed a 20% in the Ejuso constituency. I just want to believe that maybe she will need time to prepare. But if you want to talk about the political mafia, then this is very simple. Why don't we just withdraw her, knowing very well that Aduomi has clout as far as the Ajoso constituency is concerned, and also contesting as an independent candidate. Already we have some, by virtue of the last elections, some 11,000 or so supporters in the Ajoso constituency. Support him with that. Let him win as an independent candidate. The NPP will further be divided. In 2024, the party, the cracks in the party, within the party as far as Ajoso constituency is concerned, will be very, very deep. Then we can also, capitalize on that and grab the seat for the very first time. I think it's one of those political mafias, strategically.
All right, we'll have to end it here. Thank you very much, William Evans Inkum. He is our Northern Bureau Chief. Thank you for bringing us those details. And of course, we'll be bringing you more as we get closer to the elections coming up now, with barely 8 months to the next general election in Ghana. Various political party leaders have been meeting with interest groups to sell their idea and solicit inputs from them. This afternoon, the founder and leader of the Movement for Change, John Allan Kwadwo Kyerematen, is meeting executives of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. You'll recall that Mr. Kyerematen in January last year outlined his great transformational plan. He says we'll move Ghana to the next level of development. And Crosby Noble Annan is with the team. He joins us live on the line. Crosby, bring us up to speed as regards what Allan Kyerematen has been saying.
Well, Allan Kyerematen is meeting with the Ghana Union of Traders Association. This will be the third meeting that GUTA is having with any of the political or the presidential aspirants. GUTA has already met with the NPP, has met with the NDC. Now, GUTA has laid to bear to these parties what they want for their business environment. Essentially, they are concerned about the cost of doing business. 20 points. They want these parties to factor into their manifestos VAT import levies, as well as industrializing the economy, moving from trading to manufacturing, consuming made in Ghana goods, and then interest rate as well. So these essentially are the things that GUTA wants to let these political parties or these political heads to address. So the meeting is ongoing now. It's a closed-door meeting, but I spoke with President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, before they went into the meeting, and exactly this is what he expects from the meeting.
I think they are all started understanding our concerns. We have atomized about 20 points and discussing with them to factor them into their manifesto programs. And I think so far so good. And this will be our last engagement with for the week with Allan. The subsequent ones will come in due course. But so far we are very impressed with what is going on. Everything has been issue-based, and we are discussing dispassionately, and everybody have conducted himself well.
You heard that President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, earlier. You heard Noble Crosby Annan bringing us update from that meeting with the GUTA members and Allan Kyerematen. Meanwhile, flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Mahama, at a meeting with members of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, that was earlier, also criticized the group for what he described as selective display of discontent over bad economic leadership.
We must not only be interested in buying and selling and art trading, we must also be interested in what the finance minister is doing. We must be interested in looking at the budget that is being presented. And that's why I expected that GUTA would have joined us from 2019 when we started raising the red flag. A finance minister went on a borrowing spree, and today the result is there for us to see. In 6 years, he borrowed $13.5 billion from the Eurobond market. And every year, our minority was saying it in Parliament, you are overborrowing, this thing is going to lead to crisis. But we were the lone voices, everybody else was quiet. Today, the debt exchange, domestic debt exchange, and all those exchanges are because of borrowing too much. In 4 years as president, we went to the Eurobond market for $3.5 billion. That's all we took. And so all the infrastructure you saw us do and everything, it was with credit of $3.5 billion. And yet, $13.5 billion. Show me exactly what has transformed.
heard that former President John Mahama speaking to Guta earlier. And that's how we end the news here on 3FM. Our top stories, 3FM's sources indicate that organised labour is to convene a meeting over dismissal of the Director General of Smith, Dr. John Ofori-Tinkrang. Also, Ministry of Transport set to meet Transportation Union executives later this afternoon to deliberate on course for an upward review of transport fares. We brought you updates on the elections coming up in Ejiso, plus government launching a performance tracker 8 months to the end of the tenure of President Akufo-Addo to detail government's performance. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Beatrice Adu. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Good afternoon.
FM 92.7 Urban Lifestyle Radio Station.
Hello, good afternoon. It's time for Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, inflation increases sharply to 25.8% from 23.2% in February amid concerns of rising fuel prices. We'll hear from government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna Enim.
Rate of inflation stood at 25.8% year-on-year inflation relative to 23.2% recorded for the month of February 2024.
Also, Tema Oil Refinery denies takeover by Sento Oil Refinery, insisting it has not entered into any unapproved mergers or acquisition. Meanwhile, energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Suleimana calls for close monitoring of Tor-Sento partnership to avoid deactivation of the country's refinery.
The important thing is that the partnership should be mutually beneficial, and this is something that we gear towards bringing life to Tor. It shouldn't be a partnership that Sento will end up deactivating Tor.
My name is Menu Afo. Details of these stories and more are lined up for you in the next 10 minutes. Stay with me. We move straight to our first story. And inflation for the month of March 2024 increased to 25.8% from 23.2% recorded in February 2024. According to figures from Ghana Statistical Service, non-food inflation went up by 22.6%, while food inflation increased to 29.6%. Government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna Enim said food and non-alcoholic beverages as well as transports were identified as the main drivers for the increase in the overall inflation for March 2024.
Rate of inflation stood at 25.8% year-on-year inflation relative to 23.2% recorded for the month of February 2024. This indicates that we have seen a surge in the rate of inflation by 2.6 percentage points, increasing from 23.2% to 25.8% for the month of March 2024. Disaggregating this from a food and a non-food perspective, rate of inflation for food was 29.6% relative to non-food 22.6%. Both food and non-food inflation have seen a 2.6 percentage increase in its rate of inflation between February and March 2024. From a locally produced item and an imported item perspective, we continue to see locally produced items recording a higher rate of inflation relative to imported items, as locally produced items recorded a rate of inflation of 26.6% relative to 23.8%. both locally produced items and imported items have seen an increase in their rate of inflation between February and March 2024, but we've seen a much sharper increase in inflation for imported items, as inflation for imported items rose from 21.1% to 23.8%, indicating a 2.7 percentage point difference, as we saw a 2.0 percentage point difference for inflation on locally produced items.
That was government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna Enim, and this comes in line with earlier predictions by lead researcher of GCB Capital, Courage Buti, who is now arguing that the increase in inflation will be transitory and may have very little impact on Ghana's macroeconomic variables.
I think 25.8 even seems better than what I expected. I was expecting something around 26% thereabouts or slightly higher. 25.8 means that the current price pressures we're seeing from exchange rate, from petroleum prices and all of that, its impact is not as severe as we would have expected on inflation, and it sets the scope for this inflation to resume from April. Generally, that trend will continue. There are risks to the outlook. Exchange rate is still a risk. Petroleum prices is still a risk, and they are lagged impacts. And of course, the second round effect of those price pressures to inflation are all risks that need to be monitored going forward. But that is where the Bank of Ghana's interventions coming. The CRR adjustment, the policy stance, all of these would have tightened liquidity levels, and we expect these to support the disinflation trend from April going. In the meantime, I think the increase is transitory, and it may not have too much of significance for interest rates and the general macroeconomy. I think it should be viewed in that light because the disinflation trend will resume almost immediately. TB yields will be responding to the low demand we are seeing following the CRR adjustment, but not necessarily the increase in inflation.
That was the voice of lead researcher at GCB Capital, Courage Buti. Away from that, the Tema Oil Refinery has refuted reports suggesting a takeover by Central Oil Refinery. According to an official statement from TOR, no discussions regarding the sale of the refinery have taken place. My colleague Besma Kawusa has the details.
Management of the Tema Oil Refinery says, contrary to reports making the rounds, there are no ceremony planned to mark Central's alleged acquisition of TOR. The release says the refinery remains committed to its goals of restoring and resuming the operation of its processing plants and equipment, along with enhancing its terminal business. The refinery emphasized its commitment to due diligence and compliance with legal and regulatory obligations. TOR maintains that it has not engaged in any unauthorized mergers or acquisitions. It says the country's refinery only contracts its storage tanks to Central. TOR says it values its relationship with stakeholders and pledges to disclose any significant changes or developments transparently. The company assesses that its management remains under TOR's control and has not been taken over by Central Oil Refinery.
Well, you had a report by my colleague Bisma Kawusa on Tema Oil Refinery denying reports suggesting takeover by Central Oil Refinery. Meanwhile, energy strategist and chief executive of Eureka Energy Solutions, Dr. Yusuf Suleimana, has called for close monitoring of the Tema Oil Refinery's partnership with Central Oil Refinery. Currently, both entities work together in the area of crude storage, such as Central pays TOR to store some of its crude oil in the refinery storage tanks. But speaking to 3 Business, Dr. Yusuf Suleimana argued that streamlining of the said arrangement has to be done to avert possible deactivation of TOR.
The important thing is that the partnership should be mutually beneficial, and this is something that we gear towards bringing life to TOR. It shouldn't be a partnership that Central will end up deactivating TOR. The leadership of TOR should be should closely monitor. They should open up, because at the moment, TOR, the naphtha, especially from CDU, will need a secondary processing plant to add a lot of value to that. The RFCC cannot take the naphtha, so Central can take the naphtha as a raw feed and add value to be able to produce gasoline that will have high octane number, and other light products. So there's a lot Centio and Tor can do together to be mutual beneficial. So I welcome that if it's something like that that's going on.
Dr. Yusuf Suleiman is an energy strategist and chief executive of Eureka Energy Solutions. And that brings us to the end of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please log on to our website on 3news.com. My name is Menu Afo. Do stay tuned. Black Rasta will be joining you for Urban Blend.